Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Breakfast Club presentation this morning. Got a great program for you. At this point, I'm Mitch Woolley. I'm one of the committee members of the Breakfast Club committee, and I'm going to hand things over right now to Denise Anthony, who's going to welcome everyone. Denise.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am glad that you are joining us at the City Club via Zoom. But we are a diverse community at the City Club. We're business leaders, and we are there to connect to the city with what we do and our knowledge. And we move forward the whole world, as we say. As the premier private business club of Los Angeles City Club embraces and reflects the diversity and the spirit of the city. And if you do join us one of these days on other things in person, you will see that and you will feel that. And we're located on the 51st floor of the City National Tower Club. And the views are to die for. And it's just something that's wonderful. Jack is there now, and he's in our Tom Bradley room, and great views, right, Jack?
Absolutely.
So I welcome everybody to our committee members. As you saw, Mitch is the one that is our guru tech. I'm Denise Anthony, the title guru. And then you have Carmen. She is our chair of this committee meeting. Carmen is the HR guru. And then we have Vernon. Unfortunately, Vernon is not feeling well. He's under the weather. And Gary must be doing another business transaction. So, and he's our real estate guru. And of course, I should say Vernon is basically our mindfulness guru. So we have a great committee. We have fun. And we welcome you all to our wonderful breakfast committee today to hear Jack Ochoa and his wonderful tips and words of wisdom. But don't forget, you can still get your coffee or your tea, whatever, or just water if you want to be healthy, and join us. And that's it. Come, just enjoy.
Great. Let's go ahead and we're going to hand it off now to Carlos Cordova, who is going to introduce our speaker this morning. Welcome, Carlos.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mitch. Thanks, Denise. Thanks to the City Club for hosting us this morning. My name is Carlos Cordova. I work with a company called Sherpa Marketing Solutions, and I've been collaborating with Jack Ochoa for the past several months in this really interesting and very timely topic, which is government procurement. For a lot of folks, it's an unknown, it's very scary, and smacks of bureaucracy. But the great thing about Jack is that he'll be able to walk us through what it looks like, how procurement has been made easier because of the pandemic, to be honest, and how a lot of public agencies, including the City of LA, are really working to make it easier for small businesses, basically to get their fair share of procurement out there. So and many other public agencies that are really wanting to get the word out to the local business community, the local small business community, and the small businesses that are minority owned, LGBTQ, women owned, disabled veteran. There's a great deal of opportunities out there. Jack Ochoa is the head over at Infinity GPC. He's been in contracting. He has been in certification for many years. He's a very well-known entity in Southern California, assisting the local business community cut through the red tape and really identify the opportunities. He helped me basically regain my faith in procurement and certification, because I had done it. I had gotten no business at all off of it. And we really embarked on a journey of redoing our certifications, repushing our networking with public and private entities. And one of the projects that emerged is what we're working on right now with the City of LA, which was a joint pitch that I did with Jack for the launch of this RAMP procurement portal, previously known as Bavin, and now it's RAMP. So we've been working for the past few months getting the word out through all kinds of chambers of commerce, community groups. And that's why you probably landed here with us here this morning, because we've been conducting a lot of outreach, really wanting to get two things out: education and also registrations onto the platform so that your business has the visibility. So hopefully it didn't take up too much of Jack's agenda. Jack, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carlos. I really appreciate it so much. And so we're coming to you, as we mentioned before, we're coming to you from City Club. And by the way, this is a huge honor for me, and I'm super excited. And if you can't tell, like literally, I even got up at 4 a.m., which is unusual for Jack. But I'm like, oh, I popped out of bed because I was just saying, the excitement is overwhelming. So I will say this, that the whole government process, it's actually not that complicated. What I want to make sure you understand is that back in the 70s, when the SBA was created, it was created specifically to help small businesses. That's the name of small business, is the SBA, Small Business Administration. So their goal was to help small businesses. One of the biggest challenges that happened was it was the federal government that was creating this process. So it was very complex. And it, by the way, still is today. So nothing's changed in a gazillion years, right? So Carlos, I literally had to walk him off the cliff because he was like, Jack, why do I want to do this all over to him? Why do I want to do this to myself? Why do I want to go backwards when I got the certification that everybody ranted and raved about, and then I got nothing out of it? I said, well, you're approaching it a little bit wrong. You're approaching it a little differently. So we're going to start with a couple of key points of programs that are in California, specifically Los Angeles County, and why this is so important for you to actively be a part of this. And so what I will tell you this, and I want you to, as we're going through this, I want you to think about this one thing. The average transaction in the city, the county, and the state of California, the average transaction of everything they buy is about $1,500. I want you to think about what I just said, $1,500. And in your mind, you might be thinking, that's kind of small. But I want you to think about how frequently it happens. $1,500 every nanosecond. Not every second and not every hour, every nanosecond, this is happening. Whether it's the state of California, whether it's the city, the county, and even the feds. Yes, it seems kind of low, but when you do the math, the numbers add up really fast. So hopefully one of you is, a couple of you are taking out the calculator and go, okay, let me see what that would look like in an hour, right? 1,500 times 60, the number is mind blowing. So I guess what I want you to walk away with is this. It's not as scary as Carlos can attest to. It's not that bad. I think we feel like it's all this paperwork. And so the example that I will give you is this plastic thing has a cash, it's cash value. The agencies, both cities, counties, and state have a plastic card. So they can give you, they can part with cash. The other thing that is technically a contract or an order is something called a purchase order. So a purchase order is technically, and we're going to get into the weeds here, is technically a contract, and it is the government parting with cash. So what I want you to think about is this. The average purchase order in the state, in the city, in the county is $25,000 a minute. I want you to think about what I just said. In a minute, $25,000 every minute. The number is huge. And so I guess what I want to get you to understand is it's not as bad as it seems, right? Yeah, it's a little scary because you're dealing with this big, gigantic agency that has all these policies and procedures, but it's not that bad. And I think that's what I want you to understand is that there's this whole push right now for supplier diversity. So we're going to start right now first on explaining what that is.
Whoever is the host needs to mute that person.
All right, hopefully that worked. All right. All right, so let's start with, I'm going to share my screen because I do have the ability to share my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real fast. Hopefully I can get a thumbs up that you guys can see my screen. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody? All right, cool. So we're going to start with what the heck is this whole certification stuff about, right? So you have different types of certifications that are out there. One is corporate, one is public utility, like the gas company Edison, water districts. You have state certification, you have local government certification, and then you have federal certification. And so what you'll notice is that there are different types. Unfortunately for us, none of them talk to each other. So corporate doesn't talk to utility, utility doesn't talk to state. Nobody talks to anybody, which is absolutely nuts, but it is what it is, right? We don't have to like it. So what does this whole thing about supplier diversity even mean, right? So a diverse business is a business either owned or operated by an individual or a group of individuals that falls into one of the following categories, either minority owned, that would be African American, Latino, Pacific Islander, Native American. And then also you have women, which also women business owners. You have the LGBT community that also now has a certification, and of course, veterans. But I want you to walk away with this one fact. I'm going to mention a few small businesses that might help you to understand why this might be a good strategy for you. So with that said, a little tiny company called Coca-Cola, little tiny company called Amazon, little tiny company called KFC. Now you're going, wait a minute, these companies aren't small, they're huge. But I want you to think about, were they huge 100 years ago or 20 years ago? Amazon, 20 years ago, they were a small business. Coca-Cola started with one guy, a veteran, one guy, a little ice box, and that was it. That's how we started Coke. So what I want you to understand is that everybody starts as small. So why not use strategies that are in place to help you? And I think that's what I want you to understand, that well, Jack, I don't fall into any one of these categories, but you do fall into the category potentially of small. And I think that's what I want you to focus on, is there is a whole strategy on certifying and getting yourself into the small business area. So who has these supplier diversity programs? Now, mind you, a lot of big Fortune 500 companies have these programs in place. So if you happen to know somebody that is in one of these large Fortune 500 companies, phone a friend, like, hey, guess what? I'm a certified small business. Can you help me out? And I think that's where you kind of start getting that relationship. So if you're woman-owned, absolutely make that phone call. If LGBT, absolutely. Minorities, yes, reach out. Small business, yes, reach out to them and say, hey, guess what? This is what I do. I'm a small business, but I can help you with solutions that my company offers. And that's what I want you to take away from that. There are two companies that are the heavy hitters of this entire list, and they happen to be headquartered here in Southern California. Little tiny company called the gas company, which I'm sure we all heard of those guys. Another little tiny company called Edison. These guys are no joke when it comes to supplier diversity. These companies, out of the entire Fortune 500 company, year after year, hover between a 45 and 48 diverse spend, which is absolutely nuts. You're thinking, wait a minute, everything that's out there that these guys are doing, yes, the answer is yes. Yes, these two heavies basically take it seriously, because guess what? They want to raise your gas bill. They want to raise your utility bill. So that's why they're motivated to do diverse spend, because then the commission will allow them to continue to raise the rates. So supplier diversity is key. So now we're going to talk about where you go get the certification, right? So on a national scale, and we're talking about corporations, you have the National Minority Council, you have the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, and then you have WeBank West, which is a women nonprofit that actually certifies women-owned businesses, as well as the federal government that certifies. So the ones at the top are fee-based. They're an annual fee that they basically charges for you to be certified on a national basis. So if you're dealing with companies like Pepsi and Coke and Amazon and Walmart and stuff, you need the ones at the top. So let me move on to the ones at the bottom, which are free. Free. Let me say that one more time. They are free, the ones I'm about to mention. So the one at the bottom, which is called DBE, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and yes, Metro has a certification and now includes small business. So they have two programs here at LA County Metro. They have a small business enterprise and they have a disadvantaged business enterprise. For those of you that are small business, you may want to consider getting your certification with LA County Metro. Also, you have the city of LA. If you happen to be a minority or a woman, you can actually certify with the city of LA, San Diego, and San Francisco. Those three agencies have a minority business program, as well as the federal government that certifies both the non-disabled as well as disabled veterans. And of course, this little tiny place called the state of California has its own certification. You're probably wondering, why do these guys have their own certification? That's nuts. Well, when you're the fifth largest economy in the world, you could pretty much do whatever you want. So the state said, you know what? Federal certification is too hard and nobody's doing it. So why don't we create our own? So if you think about it on the federal side, it requires between 50 and 60 documents to prove that you're a small business. I want you to hear what I just said, between 50 and 60 to prove you're a small business. State of California, you need 3 pieces of paper. 3. Sign me up. I want that one because that's going to get me in the door, right? This other little tiny place called LA County. LA County has many agencies that have a small business program, including the city, the county, LAUSD, the Port of LA, Port of Long Beach, Pasadena, and a couple of other agencies here in SoCal. So now I will never go on record saying this, so I'm going to stick with number 7. Our current mayor used a number much higher than the state, which Jack is not going to quote. So I would just say he claimed the number is bigger than the state. I'm not about to do that. So I'm just going to say, yes, we're big. I don't know how big, but there is a report that came out in December of 2021 that claims that the state of California, that the LA County and the agencies that reside within the county of LA make us number, which is nuts. But hey, whatever, right? And they all have a small business program. You're like, wait a minute, these guys have an easy small business program? Yes. And guess what? They can't find us. So according to the US Census, there is 1.1 million businesses in LA County. Unfortunately, only 150,000-ish are registered in any one specific system, whether it's the county, the city, or so we're not connecting the dots. We know we're out there, but if you don't identify with one of the agencies, they're never going to find you. And then you're like, well, you know, the Olympic Games came into town and they left and they dropped all this money and I didn't participate. Well, if they can't find you, they can't use you. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way it has to work out. You have to identify that you're here. So the commonality between these two agencies, both the city, the county, and the state, is that they all accept the California Small Business Certification. So, you know the old saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Play the game. This is gonna get you into the programs that are in place. So from that perspective, there are many certifications that are out there. You have the federal one, which is complex. And then you have the easy one, which I mentioned earlier, which is the Department of General Services, which is accepted by the city of LA, by the county, by the school district. So it behooves you to take some time and get this certification done. So now this eye chart, because I want to explain to you why there's so many different certifications. So you have a whole game that's being played right here in this upper corner. Small business certification is important for the state, the county, the school district, the airport, the Port of LA, DWP, and many others. There is about $1 trillion here in SoCal that is coming, that if we do not get on board with this, we're going to miss out. That process, by the way, certification for that one takes about an hour. Then of course, you have the federal government one that I mentioned earlier, a lot of documentation, a lot of paperwork. You got to go register on sam.gov. It gets very involved. You got to hope to God that you don't miss an email. So with that said, certification is a little on the tougher side, but you can do it. I have seen people take up to 2 years to get this one done. But hey, if you're willing to wait it out, go for it, right? Now, on the corporate side, there is a certification for supplier diversity, both for minorities, women, LGBT, and veterans. And that certification is a fee-based, as I mentioned earlier, and it takes about 60 days to get approved. Public utilities have a own separate certification, which is through the California Public Utility Commission. And that one takes about 2 hours. I have seen somebody do this in an hour, but it does take about 30 days to get approved. And of course, the pink elephant in the room is Metro. Metro has now a small business program as well as a disadvantaged program, but the certification is a little on the tough side, as Carlos can attest. It's a little tough, but I mean, I know Carlos is on actually, hopefully, knock on wood, he's on a bench potentially to get some work with Metro. So why am I saying it's so important to play this out? So who accepts this DGS certification? The school district. You have the county, the city, the airport, DWP, the Port of LA, Metropolitan Water District, Long Beach, the Port of Long Beach, the community college district like Trade Tech, LA City College. You also have Pasadena that now has a Pasadena First program. And of course, Metrolink also accepts the certification. I'm going to skip the paperwork. Actually, I'm going to send this to Mitch so you guys can have this as to what paperwork is required. So we're going to send this out for those that registered so you actually can see what's involved in getting registration. And so I guess at this point, what I want you to do, I want you to kind of know that the golden ticket here ultimately is this small business certification that I mentioned early on, and that's through the Department of General Services. So with that said, I want to kind of spend some time talking to you more about why the certification is only one component of opening the doors for yourself. So here's what I want. I want them one clear message to, I want you to walk away with, is that depending on who it is that you're trying to talk to, whether it's, and I'm going to pick on Carlos because I know where he lives, okay? So for example, if he wants to deal with a company like 3M, so I'm going to pick on 3M because I know there's a 3M facility right by in San Fernando Valley. So down the street from where Carlos lives, he can go knock on that dang door and say, hey, I'm a certified disadvantaged business. I'm a certified minority business. I'm a certified small business. You have money to spend, and I'm here to help you. So depending on, again, I don't know what everybody, I know, well, let me pick on Carmen, because I know Carmen Torres does this. So HR, they are actively looking for women-owned businesses. Everybody is. So you're like, okay, I want to go deal with Chevron. So you want to go and mention to those folks, hey, I'm a woman-owned business. I'm certified as small or as women-owned businesses. So I guess my key message to you is this. Whoever it is that you are trying to target, whether it's the school district or the city, and I'm going to put aside the city for a minute because Carlos is going to talk about the city of LA, which is the RAMP program that the city created. So I'm going to pick on some smaller cities. And I mean smaller like Beverly Hills. They don't get called on by anybody because people are intimidated that, well, it's Beverly Hills. Do they buy anything? Yes, they do regularly, but it's usually by Amazon, by Grainger, or by some big consulting company like Arthur Andersen, Deloitte & Touche. They're spending money there, but they're supposed to be spending money with small business. Another small city that you may or may not be aware of is a city called Long Beach. You're like, that's not a small city, that's huge. But they don't get called on as often. Another small city that we all recognize, city of Pasadena. Like they are actively looking for small businesses and they can't find any. You're like, seriously, help me out here. There is opportunities. So that's another one. I'm trying to think of what other cities are around here. Compton. Yes, Compton buys stuff. So my point is this. These school districts also buy stuff on a regular basis. So wherever you're at, the local school district in your community also buys stuff. Now, I can't say this for other school districts, but I can say this for LAUSD. LAUSD, their average budget per school is about $1 million. You're like, wait a minute, they have $1 million per principal? Yes, and they buy stuff. So you're like, sign me up. Hey, Mr. Principal or Miss Principal, do you have a credit card? Because I have services that you could buy, whether it's putting up a fence or putting up a door or painting a wall. You got to start somewhere, right? Why not start with some of these smaller agencies? before you try to take on someone like the city or the county. So I always encourage businesses to go to their own neighborhood and go, what school is near here? What city is near me? Maybe I take on a smaller city and maybe they can get, so I can get my feet wet so I can know what's involved with dealing with these agencies or with these smaller agencies that nobody calls on. I was recently talking to San Dimas, and they're like, Jack, you know that you're the first salesperson we've seen pre-pandemic? I'm like, seriously, that's nuts. So what I'm telling you is that they are out there and they're starving to help small businesses, but they can't find you when you're not interacting with those, because instead of dealing with the cities near our neighborhood, we want to drive into town, into downtown LA, and we want to take on the county. We want to take on the city. You know what? Why not deal with the local businesses and the local agencies that are in your neighborhood to help you to get your feet wet? And I think that's really the main message that I want you to walk away with, is that unfortunately, today, every agency has their own system, whether it's the individual city or the school districts or whoever, they have their own system. Now, what Carlos is going to share with you in a minute here is that RAMP is going to help to overcome that. The idea behind this program that the city of Los Angeles has created is to make it neutral, like think of it like a big gigantic job board or a posting board where opportunities are going to lie. So currently, I say currently, the city of LA is on there, the Dodgers are on there, the Rams are on there, Cedars-Sinai is on there, the City of Hope, and then Carlos and I recently found out that there's going to be about 100 hospitals that have to spend with diverse businesses. So I say have to, and let me be clear about that. Have to, it's a law. So there's actually a law that requires them to spend this. So I think that's an opportunity that we don't see that's right in front of us. And I mean, I'm looking at the screen right now and I'm looking at a lot of ladies that you're like, hello, I need to get in that door. They need to spend money with me. Like, and I think that's what I want you to walk away with, that is that there is an opportunity there, but you have to take that first step. You have to initiate, how do I do that? So remember, there are 3 ways to have the city buy stuff from you. One of them is on a credit card, right? This thing right here, they all have one of these. The other message, number 2, is a purchase order. So purchase order is just like cash, right? You can go to the bank with that. And then of course, the one that everybody fears, Carlos and I included, is the bid process. You're like, but Jack, that's a lot of paperwork. And I'm not going to say no, and Carlos will attest to this. Yes, it's a lot of paperwork. Carmen can attest to this. Yes, it's a lot of paperwork. But how are you going to know how it works if you don't give it at least one shot, right? Start somewhere with some smaller ones. So as you're thinking through this process, I want you to remember this one thing. Rome was not built in one day. Rome was not built in one day. In fact, I just found out that one of my buddies went there and he took a picture of a train, and I'm like, where are you? Because it was in front of the Colosseum, and I'm like, whoa, they're putting a train next to the Colosseum? So Rome is they're still working on it. I want you to think about it. It's not done. They're still working on it right now. So what I'm getting to, that message that I want you to walk away with, is that there is only one way to eat an elephant. Only one. And that's one tiny, tiny, tiny morsel at a time. And I think that's what I want you to walk away with, is that, it's okay to feel like it's too much. It's not that bad if you're willing to take on some smaller deals. And again, I'm going to say it again, $1,500 seems like a lot of cash. So I'm going to put Mitch on the spot. Mitch, can you take a calculator out and help me with an exercise? I want you to type in for me 4,999.
4999, got it.
I want you to multiply that times 250 working days.
Okay.
Well, how much is that amount?
About $1.25 million.
So I want all of you to think about it for a moment. We did one deal that happens every day, more or less, right? What kind of an impact would that have to your business? Pretty significant, right?
100,000 a month.
All right, so it's 100,000 a month. So I'm gonna peel this back just a hair. So Mitch, same number, 4,999. And then I want you to multiply that times once a week, so 52 weeks.
$250,000.
So I want all of you to think about, you're like, okay, 1.1, a little bit high, but a $250,000, that's not bad. I think I can handle that. A couple of purchase orders a week.
22,000 a week or a month.
And that's my point. And yesterday I was talking to a young lady who is going to be doing some consulting for a university in Northern California. And she goes, Jack, I want the whole purchase order. I want all $400,000, but I don't understand. They said no. And I'm like, well, do you know why they said no? And she's like, well, not really. I think they just don't have the money. I'm like, no. I go, did the person who told you no say these words? It's like, okay, what did he say? Did he say, will you consider breaking this up? And her answer was no. I'm like, hold on a minute. Let's take a step back. I want you to think about this. The person just offered to give you the deal, but if you're willing to do it smaller. So I said, okay, how many quarters are in a football game? 4. In order to win a championship, there are 4 quarters. So what I told her, I said, look, why don't you call the person back and say, hey, why don't we do a 4-phase proposal? She called me this morning in tears to tell me that the guy gave her a purchase order for $100,000. I'm like, seriously? And she goes, Jack, how did you know? Because the guy offered to have you break it up. Because there's no way you can eat the whole elephant in one city. You do it in phases, and now you're kind of tying yourself into the system, so that then the next purchase order can only go to you, and the one after that can only go to you, and because it's a 4-phase proposal. So she's like, oh, that's why he said yes at 100,000. I'm like, are you happy? She goes, well, I would rather have the 400,000. I'm like, come on, seriously? $100,000 is a lot of money. So I think that's the opportunity to look at it from that perspective. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Carlos for just to share, because I want him to share the RAMP platform that the city of LA has created. Carlos, if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and share your screen on RAMP? And you're on mute.
I mute myself first.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks so much for that introduction.
Mhm.
I'd like to give you guys a little bit of an overview and also a little bit of background into how we got here and how you all got here this morning to the City Club. A few years ago, some of the folks from the city of LA and some consultants went out to the London Olympics. They visited London for the Olympics. And there was a program that was implemented at the time, really driven to make sure that the spending at the London Olympics was also going down to the local small business level. It was a very conscious effort that the Olympic organizers and the City of London put together for small businesses to get a fair share of that business that was coming into the city, not just the huge companies. The folks came back, the City of LA, the City Council got behind it. Council folks have been proponents of it, and the existing Los Angeles BAVN procurement portal has been relaunched as RAMP, as you see it here, and really we are leading up to the 2028 Olympics that are coming to LA in 6 years from now. RAMP was generated so that not only opportunities from the city of LA would be visible, but as Jack mentioned, other municipalities and private companies are being invited to post opportunities. So, you know, we're all small business people. Jack mentioned an alphabet soup of different opportunities and counties and, oh my gosh, you know, everything under the sun. who's going to remember to check with so many different quote unquote opportunities? That takes time. So what RAMP is doing right now, very actively recruiting other companies, other municipalities to post opportunities in this single portal. So it's not only going to be City of Los Angeles opportunities, but City of Long Beach Transportation, Jack mentioned several others that are going to be posting opportunities on this platform. And it works two ways, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So registration is free at rampla.org. If your company was previously registered in Bavin, it was most likely rolled over into RAMP, but you still want to go in there. You should be your same password combination to get in, but there's some additional details you can add to your registration that are quite important. So again, registration is free. You can go in there right now. You can click on that login button, and it'll, if you're not registered, it will give you the options to initiate the process. It's quite fast, and again, it's free to register. The great thing about it is twofold. One is you can see two things that are the most important ones. One is you can search for opportunities. What is the City of LA and other entities buying right now, this very moment? And you can look up business profiles. If you're registered, your business will be one of them in there. But what I want to show you first is a search for opportunities. When you click on this tab, and you can even, I think you can even see this even if you're not registered. So even if you want to kick the tires, you're welcome to do that. And just click on opportunities. And it'll show you what the city is buying. No surprise, they're buying all kinds of crazy mechanical, IT, really high-end kind of activities. But look at the kind of projects that are now beginning to pop up. Yes, there's going to be, widening of a road. Most of us will not be bidding for that. But they're looking for application and grant writing. They're looking for, there's a Rehabilities Film Festival. Somebody put in the chat whether are there certifications for disabled firms. There's no certification per se, but gosh, there's a Rehabilities Film Festival coming up by the Department on Disability. And there's a contact here who is the category buyer. This is the individual within the City of LA that's in charge of purchasing for this event production that's coming up. Mm-hmm. So whoever was on the chat may have a very interesting conversation to be had with this individual. Now, this individual, of course, has to go through a process. An RFP needs to be submitted for whatever the requirements are for this project. But guess what? You have a live person with whom you can interact and find out what it is they're looking for. There's going to be documents that you can download. Obviously, it's the city, so it's a lot of paperwork, be forewarned. But there's so much information that's available within this system. And that's really the message that I want to communicate to you, that not only is it apply or submit for a procurement opportunity with the city or other entities, but you can utilize it as a networking tool. You can email Gina and say, hey, I'm interested in this project. The proposal is due, it's actually due tomorrow, but if you can send your materials in, that's great. But if not, you can certainly engage in conversations with this individual. There may be other upcoming RFPs for this one production. So definitely look at it in that sense. The other way to look at and utilize RAMP as a kind of like as a prospecting tool for all of us is to go by business profile. All of us that are in, let's see if I'm in there. Yeah. We should all be on here, and you can control the information that you have on your profile in your business. So that, let's say you are want to work as a subcontractor for consulting businesses, for example. Well, you can reach out to businesses through this portal. For example, if we do a really quick lookup, the vendor, let's say if I want to look at construction, and the key way that you would identify companies here is by what's called their NAICS code. And that's the first thing you want to know about your product and your services. What is your NAICS code? Because pretty much everything under the land has been assigned a code by the government. So there's going to be all kinds of, in this case, construction and engineering companies, for example. So if I want to be a subcontractor in the area of construction, for example, I can look up all of these businesses, and I'll randomly pick this one here. And there's going to be a description, their NAICS codes, and there should be, we'll see when it pops up, a contact person with whom you can reach out, to whom you can reach out. So you can communicate and say, I am also registered in RAMP. In this case, the lady's name is Karen, and she is the primary contact in this engineering and construction company based out in Rosemead. So utilize your registration in RAMP in two different ways. One is to look at opportunities within your field, your goods, your services, and network with the city buyer or whoever the contact is for that project.
Mm-hmm.
And second, you can utilize it to look up other businesses in the industries that you work in, and you can network with them. A lot of the times, and we're seeing it with the city and we're seeing it with the county, there's a lot of federal dollars coming in for I think Rebuild America. And a lot of these dollars have requirements for small business utilization, women-owned business utilization, sometimes as high as 25% of the total contract. We're talking multi-million-dollar contracts with a very high requirement mandated by the state that has to be spent with the local small business community. And that means that the more networking you do within the system, those big primes, as they're called, can rely on you as a small business to help them meet the requirements that they need to submit. And if they don't meet that percentage threshold, they will not be considered for these bigger projects. So utilize RAMP to look for opportunities for your business, to network with the buyer community, and also to network with other entities that are registered on there. So my call to action would be register there, it's free, and make sure that you put in what kind of industry you work in. And for that, you will use your NAICS codes, and you can get those codes, if you don't have it, for free within the census.gov website. I think you can probably Google NAICS codes and it'll send you to different pages, but census.gov has it as well.
That was one of the questions that came up, Carlos, was where do I find it? So you can either find it through NAICS.com or through the US Census.gov/NAICS. So there's a couple of ways to find it. So somebody asked a question, and that is this. So what are some of the timings and strategies that you can use that I want you to consider? Which, by the way, that is a great question to ask, okay? And I want to thank Kimberly for that question. So it's all about timing, right? So what you got to remember, most local governments start on July 1. So from July 1 through about Labor Day, about 50% of the people are on vacation, right? All the decision makers are gone. But when they get back, they go through a spending frenzy. So the spending frenzy starts the Tuesday after Labor Day, and then it keeps going all the way through the Friday before Thanksgiving. So why am I being very specific about that date? Because I've been doing this for way too long, 29 years to be specific. So from the Tuesday following Labor Day, all the way through the Friday before Thanksgiving, spending frenzy like it's nobody's business. And then this stops. And then so they go through their holiday, right, Thanksgiving. They got 2 weeks on, and then they take off again for another month. So when they get back on or about January 15th, all the way through about the middle of May, the second Friday in May, it's a spending frenzy. So they're spending money like it's nobody's business for about, what's that, about 4 or 5 months? And then it stops again. So what it's about timing, right? So what I recommend to you, and I'm going to go back to Kimberly's question, it's about timing. Use the downtime right now to start putting your proposals together. Start maybe asking the person that reports to that supervisor, what are some of the challenges that he or she is facing? And maybe that's a solution that you can provide, and you can start working on a proposal by asking some questions and going, okay, what do I do? And when do I do? Well, the best time to turn in your, what they call unsolicited proposal, by the way, you might want to write that down. Unsolicited proposal is then that's when you can give it to somebody, but you want to be careful with this one thing. You don't want to do what the young lady yesterday did, where she wanted to go after all 400,000. You want to break it up into phases so that way you can kind of get in the door. So look at it more from the perspective of, yes, it's a $400,000 project, but am I willing to do 100,000 at a time? And the answer for most of you should be yes. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So what I want you to understand is that it's okay to not try to eat the elephant in one sitting. So I think that's where we need to be open to the idea of kind of step back and going, okay, it's a little bit different, it's a different strategy. And I think that's what I want you to walk away with, is about timing. So Kimberly, thank you for the question. That was an actually great question. Very few people ask that question, but yeah, it's about timing. You want to make sure that you ask and figure out how do you get in and figure out how do you position yourself to make sure that that scope of work is written in your direction. So speak about unsolicited proposal details. Okay. So like I said before, an unsolicited proposal is maybe, think of it like a doctor visit, right? Think of it like a doctor visit. You don't know what is quite wrong with something maybe hurting, maybe your arm's hurting, right? So I'm going to pick on Jack. So the other day, I noticed that my feet were a little swollen. So then my doctor's like, dude, you need to come in so we can check, do a blood test, figure out what's going on. And so what I realized is that I went in and he goes, are you drinking enough water? I'm like, no. He goes, you realize how hot it is, right? I'm like, yes, I know, but you need to drink more water, Jack, because you're not drinking, you're retaining a lot of water. Who knew, right? I'm like, okay, now I know I need to drink more water. So I guess my point is, I didn't know what I didn't know until I went in. So what I'm saying to you is that you need to do a little bit of investigating. You need to be the salesperson. You need to go from the guy who's the person that's the CEO to the salesperson. You need to sell your business, your idea, your concept. I know Mitch does all kinds of marketing. How is he going to know that the animal services has a problem? Well, maybe he was watching the news and he saws that right now they're getting a lot of bad press because they have a lot of animals. Okay, maybe there's a strategy that he can go in and, hey, here's something that you may want to present to the public, and maybe Mitch can take on a small PR project to show them what he can do or what his firm can do. All of a sudden, they're like, hey, we really like this. Would you be interested in maybe doing it with this center, with that center, with that center? All of a sudden, he's doing it for 100 different animal centers across the city of LA. So it might have started out as a small $5,000 purchase order, could quickly add up into thousands of dollars and possibly hundreds of thousands. So I guess that's what I want you to know is an unsolicited proposal. Think of it like a quote, a formal quote that did not go out to bid, that they can review and select on their own. So they don't have to go necessarily through this process. They can just issue you a purchase order or provide you a credit card without having to go through all the paperwork that typically is found with most government agencies, whether it's the state, the city, or the county. I see another question by Kim. Sorry about PR. I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Jack, one question that's in the chat. Do city governments include sources sought notices in RAMP?
Okay. So source of thought is a federal term. So source of thought is primarily found with the federal government. So whether it's the FBI or the Army, the Navy, the Marines. So in those spaces, yes, they do the source of thought. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen with the county, the city, or any of the local agencies around here. What they might do, and it happens very, very infrequently, is something called an RFI, request for information. So the project that Carlos and I took on with this ramp thing, there was an RFI about 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, they did, hey, is there a need to update Bavin, now called ramp? And everybody came back with, yes, I have this great idea, and all these ideas get thrown out. And so that's how the bid went out. Once they go, okay, here's some ideas, here's some concepts. Let's throw together a potential solicitation, and then we'll go from there. Because if Carlos can remember, they asked a lot of technical questions because they wanted to make sure that whatever firm they selected met a lot of the different areas that they were looking for to get information on. So I guess that's what I'm telling you, is that a unsolicited proposal is the beginning stages of that, is what could potentially can lead to is something called an RFI. But then now you've opened up the door to other competitors to come in. So I'm not a fan of that, because at the end of the day, you know, Deloitte and Touche or Arthur Anderson or some big consulting company is going to come in and they're going to hand you your lunch. Now, I will tell you this, when I used to work on the corporate side and we want to bid for this little tiny place called the county, we were at negative 23%. So by a quick show of hands, who here would absolutely not take that deal? Negative 23%. No, but big companies do that all the time. What they'll do is they'll buy the space by basically doing a negative margin with the hopes that they could turn around and market the heck out of that they have this particular contract, but then they won't share what pricing they did in order to get it. So they'll buy the space. So know that large companies will typically buy the space to avoid anybody getting that work. Any other questions, Carlos?
Is the story about the PR guy and the animal shelter actually happened?
No, I saw it in the news, but I'm like, well, somebody should do it, but I don't know anybody that's done it. I mean, I don't know anybody that's willing to go do the work.
Perfect. Another question is, I am a Black woman-owned mental health and wellness consulting company interested in providing programming for the city or LAUSD. What certifications would you suggest?
All right, so I'm going to give you the easy one. So I'm going to say it again. California Department of General Services has a small business certification. The letters are CADGS, and that's your small business certification, because that's going to be the one that's going to open the door for you the quickest, number one. Then you can pursue your minority one and your woman one, but I would do that down the road. Those certifications are a little more intense. Now for you specifically, because you asked a very specific question, is that the city of Los Angeles does not have a mental health department. However, the county of LA does. Remember, you got to think about who has a health department. So LA County has a health department, Pasadena has a health department, Long Beach has a health department. Those are the three agencies that I would recommend that you consider looking at what certifications they request, and it primarily should be small business because they're in the city. Now, I know I didn't mention this earlier, so I think I might have glazed over it. In California, in 1996, we as California voters ended affirmative action under Prop 209. So we ended it. So it is, I mean, unfortunately, we didn't read the fine print. And as a result of that, we ended affirmative action. So, but we all didn't get the memo, which is okay, because now the play is, since 1996, is a small business strategy. I had to convince Carlos on this exact topic when Carlos and I first met. I'm like, let's go get your DGS one so that we can get some work. And that's what we did. And that's how we got the city project. But I know Carlos has picked up other work as a result of his minority status. So I think that's where you got to kind of start with some smaller certifications to open up some doors for you.
Jack, I'm going to put in the chat right now the link. I just found it, the link to DGS.
Okay.
And that can get everybody started with their, again, that's California State certification, but it is the, like you said, the easiest one to start. And what happens with the city of Los Angeles is that they will take your state of California DGS certification and load it directly into your ramp profile. So by doing California State DGS, it automatically gets pulled into ramp. It's not automatic. When you go to register your certification in ramp, they will grab it from the state. So don't rely on the city to update your profile. You basically need to let the city know that you want your state certification to show up in your ramp profile, but DGS is the place to start. And is DGS the same as Cal eProcure? Yes, DGS is the master department with the state, and eProcure is
Right.
within DGS.
Right. So Mitch, I'm looking at the clock and it looks like we only got 4 minutes left. So, oh, we got 4 minutes left. So from what I understand is that this is being recorded and it's going to be in two places. It's going to be on the YouTube channel for the Breakfast Club, as well as, I'm not sure how you're getting this out, Mitch. So I'm going to hand the mic over back to Mitch. And then I have a unique way of saying goodbye. So hang on for the very end, okay?
All right. Thanks a lot, Jack. Really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for attending. I've already put the link to the Breakfast Club YouTube channel in the chat box. I'll put it in there again in case you didn't get it. Either copy it and put it in your and save it, or you can click on it and keep it in your browser. The presentation will actually be presented, will be added on there within a day or two. The notifications when it goes out, if you're not a subscriber on the channel, then you won't get a notification. Otherwise, I would suggest that you go there now and subscribe, and then you'll get notification when that's posted. We host events every month. We're dark in August, and we'll be back in September. Jack, what do you have for the last your last little offer?
So here's what I know we all just kind of break away from Zoom. We just hang up. So I challenge you with this. Today, sometime if you happen to do another Zoom call, how about a virtual fist bump on the way out, right? It's a little different, but it kind of gets like, because nobody knows how to say goodbye on Zoom anymore. So you're like, everybody just hangs up. So I would just say, do a fist bump on the way out, and then that'll be our close, all right? So for those of you who are off camera or on camera, I know for those of you off camera, you can't do it. For those of you who are, you can do a quick fist bump on the way. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much, Jack. Great presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for attending. We bid you a farewell. Again, we're dark next month. We meet monthly for Zoom meetings, and we're going to start going back to the club within the next couple of months. And I'll actually be presenting on Wednesday, September the 21st on digital marketing. And the actual topic is going to be how to boost sales and how to boost leads and sales for your small business with digital marketing. So we look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of months. Thank you. We bid you farewell. One more fist bump before we go. There we go. Thanks a lot, Jack. Thanks, Carlos. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.